American National is proud to support No Ceiling, helping to tell the stories of professional women. American National is dedicated to providing paths for leadership and advancement through the Women's Forum, a group of female leaders who provide encouragement, mentorship, and advocacy for American National female employees. With 4 corporate locations in Galveston and League City, Texas, Albany, New York, and Springfield, Missouri, the opportunities for leadership advancement are vast. American National believes taking care of business starts with taking care of its employees.
And that was one of the reasons, too, that I was interested in them, is because they cared about culture and supporting remote workers.
Today's guest is Jordan McAdoo. She's a software engineer who works at StitchFix, a national company that uses technology to match customers with clothing that fits their style. She focuses on the company's app and building that user experience. She's taken her skill set into the community, helping connect other women within her industry to help grow the tech scene. She says a diverse workforce just makes for a better product. From SBJ Podcasts, I'm Christine Temple, and this is No Ceiling, a show that goes in depth with local women, sharing their journey to the top of their professions and the challenges and triumphs they faced along the way. They're rewriting the script on success, and there's no ceiling. Well, welcome, Jordan. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Awesome.
I'm excited to be here.
So let's talk about your journey into tech. When did you first know that you were interested in this line of work?
So I have been into computers since I was a kid. Started off playing computer games like Barbie horse games and stuff like that. But from there, I also got into art. And so when I was in college, I kind of saw the joining of those two things as animation, bringing computers and art together. But once I graduated, I realized that wasn't really what I wanted to do professionally. So I ended up working at a help desk, answering phones, which I also hate. And at that company, the next logical step was QA, which is quality assurance. So I moved into that role, testing software. And that was when I really got a better look at what development was like and what it could offer. And so I just started learning in my spare time, switched jobs, and then I got a really good opportunity to learn hands-on with the other developers at the company. I realized there was more to development than I thought. And looking back, I wish that I had done it sooner, which is part of the reason too that I'm so passionate about helping women come into tech, because I feel like it's not as visible as a woman that's a career option and path.
So what about software engineering, programming really what fascinated you? What did you like about it so much?
I think there's quite a few things. The first thing for me is that I really like doing what's called front-end work. So work that you can see making a website, or what I primarily do, making an iOS app. I just really liked the feeling of creating, which I think comes from my love of art too. Being able to write something that then people are going to see and use. I love that. It's also a lot of problem solving, which, while frustrating sometimes, I think once you finally get it figured out, it is the best feeling, the satisfaction of working through those things, working on hard problems, and then coming to a good solution.
How does your personality, I guess, connect with that type of work too?
For me, it's problem solving. I love puzzles. I love riddles. I love taking messy things and putting them into an organized manner, not with my house, but in other ways.
Isn't that so true?
Yeah. It's not personal, but professionally, I like to be organized. And so I think that for me, my personality, wanting to solve those problems has fit in really well. And I really like working with people towards the same goal.
Yeah.
So especially during this pandemic, work has been like my social outlet too. And so it's really nice to have people who have similar interests to be able to interact with them.
Yeah. So then tell us how you got involved in StitchFix, because of course that company is not based here, you know, like, and in Springfield, Missouri. I think you're the only employee.
There's two now.
There's two now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I was talking to my friend who lives in St. Louis, who we used to work together, about how I was interested in remote work. And she was the one who suggested StitchFix to me because she had heard they had such a good remote work culture there. And so I happened at that time to be looking for a new opportunity and went onto their website, and there was an iOS position open. So I just applied. It was like maybe the first time in my life that I applied somewhere where I didn't know somebody, like I wasn't being referred. So that was kind of scary, but it was honestly the best interview experience. I went into it having never used StitchFix, honestly, and my mom had, so I knew about it to an extent. But I like fell in love with the company, the CEO, and the like mission of the company.
Yeah. Well, and before we get into your friend too, like just tell us what is StitchFix, because I'm sure people have seen commercials and understand the concept, but like, how does the product work?
Yeah, you'd be surprised. I think a lot of people think just initially that it's a subscription service, which, I mean, that's an aspect of it, but the core of it is that it's you sign up and you get matched with a personal stylist. And so the heart of StitchFix is bringing together like the human and computer aspect of things. So we have an algorithms team that writes up the algorithms that the stylists leverage to find items that clients will love. So you can sign up as a recurring subscription, so you can do monthly, bi-monthly, annually, or you can request the boxes on demand. I think I used some work terminology there. We call the boxes fixes that people receive. So yeah, the core of it is like getting that stylist, a personal stylist who picks out things for you. And then an important thing too is that the more you have, like longer that you have the service, the better that the recommendations will get from the algorithm.
So then what do you do specifically for StitchFix? You're kind of on the Apple mobile side of it, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm on the customer-facing mobile team.
Okay.
Technically, we have an Android app. It's not a lot right now, but we are hiring. We're building out our Android team now, so that'll get better. But I do iOS development, so I work on the iOS app that clients see.
Okay. And are you primarily, when you're developing, working in code? Is that the language that you? And tell us, like, what is code? Because it's like this really mystery thing to people that don't work in it. I think for people that aren't in tech in general, it's like kind of this like territory that we just don't understand, we don't get. But code is just a language, right?
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, obviously you can go deep down into the technicalities of it, but pretty much what you said, like there's a language that the computer understands, and that's how computers work, like zeros and ones, you know, firing off these signals. But people have written things on top of that and on top of that to make them easier to work with so that you can make computers do the things we want them to. So there's like a computer language, and then there's different languages based on what you want to do. So I work in a language called Swift, which is for iOS, Apple develops it.
Okay.
And behind the scenes, like I'll write this code in Swift, and then behind the scenes, it'll take that code and turn it into something for the computer to read. So that's kind of where the like language aspect of it comes in. So honestly, the stuff that I write, I mean, it's confusing if you've never looked at code in your life and you like look at a screen, you're like, what's going on here? But it'll be human readable. Like I can go in and that's something really important too in programming, is like making things readable so that someone else on my team can go look at the code and read it and see what's going on there.
Mm-hmm. Do those portrayals that you've seen in the media, in social media and pop culture and movies, entertainment, does that like affect who wants to come into tech? Like, is that part of the reason why women have not been in tech as much? Or what are some of the factors? So that's something that's really important to you, that you mentioned. So what are some of the factors that have kind of been a wall for women?
Yeah. Basically what you said, and I think I hinted at it previously, is that you can see yourself in positions where there are people who look like you. Mm-hmm. Like even as a kid, that's super important. It's just seeing people who look like you and you pay attention to what they're doing. So the media portrayal of like a guy in the basement is not gonna resonate as much to them. So I think that it's been a problem in representation for women, for minorities. And they don't get the opportunity as much to see themselves in tech. So that has been something that I've tried to work on. I mean, I'm not the person who's like, yes, put me in front of a camera, put me in a microphone, but I still want to put myself out there because I want like girls out there to know that that's an option for them, and maybe they'll love it as much as I do.
Mm-hmm. Why is it important to have that diversity in the people that are actually working in technology and developing technology?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important to have a diverse team on the technology side of things, because they all come in, like everyone comes in with their own different perspective based on their life experiences. So I, as a woman, will have a different perspective on the application we're developing than a man might. You can think of it like even with just like a left-handed person versus a right-hand person, and the way that they're going to interact with your technology is different. So I know at my last job there was someone who was colorblind, and so he would point out things that I would have never thought of with our applications. There's also been some stuff around AI and the biases inherent in those systems, in that the people who were developing them didn't necessarily think of the experiences of people of color. There was one that like you could upload your photo and then get matched up with like a famous piece of art, and it didn't work as well with minorities. They kept getting the same things over and over again as it did with others. There's another example. Oh, yeah, and then like Apple even with Face ID. I know that was a struggle initially with people of color trying to open their phone and it wouldn't register their face. So it's just like you need to consider all of the factors and all the different people that are going to be using your technology, and it's harder to do that when you all look the same.
Right. Well, if it's not your life experience, it's like, it's not that you can't understand it, it's just that it's not as like natural too.
Yeah,
like,
it's not top of mind.
Yeah. And at a company as large as Apple, to have challenges with a new rollout like that, it's surprising to me. Does that surprise you?
Yeah, to an extent, I guess. I mean, and it's hard, like developing applications, making new technology is hard. But I think it's important to do everything we can to make it accessible and a good experience for everyone.
Yeah. So locally, you are involved in a Women in Tech initiative. So what has been your mission, and what have you guys been able to accomplish?
Yeah, so we started a few years ago. We started small because none of us really knew what we were doing. We all just wanted the opportunity to create a space in the community for women who were in tech or interested in tech to get together, to learn things, to have a safe space to ask questions and share information, help people with job opportunities, etc. So that's really what it's become, honestly. I love all of the women in the group, and so we have women-only events, women and gender minority-only events, and then events that are open to everybody. So it's been a really nice space to build each other up. And then going forward, I would love to start offering classes, like maybe like a Saturday class where some girls in the community could come and learn something about coding, but haven't been able to do that. And then there was a pandemic.
Yeah. What have you gained from it? Just, leading that, because I'm sure a lot of people have connected with you. I don't know if people have been able to find opportunities because of it too. Like, what have been some of the big wins for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me personally, just the community that we've built, there's women who I don't know if we would ever have connected otherwise. And so we've been brought together from that group. It's taught me a lot about event organization, which wasn't something that I thought I would be doing, but I actually do kind of enjoy it, so that's nice. And I do think that we've had the opportunity to share like job postings with each other, help. We've done some meetups that are like going over resumes or here's how to give better interviews. And so anything that I can do to help diversify tech, then I'm like happy to do it. So
Springfield, of course, is not like Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
But we do have tech companies here. I mean, can you tell us more about the tech industry here in Springfield?
Yeah, I think there's some big players in the tech space here. So some of those would be O'Reilly, Jack Henry. Then there's Worldwide Tech, formerly Asynchrony, which is where I came from before StitchFix. There's some I'm probably not thinking of off the top of my head, but Expedia also is here. So they hire a good number of people in the community, and I think it's honestly a pretty tight-knit community. Like if you go to some of the tech meetups here, you'll see some of the same people over and over again, which is really nice because then you can all get to know each other, and we, like share experiences and knowledge in that way. But I'm also excited to see it growing. Like Asynchrony, Worldwide Tech came in to this space 3 years ago or so. I got hired, to work for a California company. So, and I think the pandemic too will probably help see an increase in remote work. So I think there's a good amount of opportunity here in the tech space.
When we come back, Jordan will talk about working at home and how that works well for her family and mental health. Support for Season 1 of this podcast is provided by presenting sponsor American National Insurance. We'll be right back.
Success comes a little easier when you have trusted day in, day out support. At Great Southern Bank, you'll have your own go-to team of financial experts to rely on and learn from, and who'll be there with you every step of the way. Because every leader deserves a great team behind her. Learn more at GreatSouthernBank.com, ranked a Forbes 2020 World's Best Bank by our customers. Thank you. Member FDIC.
Springfield Business Journal has been the business authority for over 40 years. SBJ strives to provide the most relevant, timely, and accurate business news you need to make important decisions. Locally owned and operated, Springfield Business Journal helps businesses market themselves to other businesses. Since 75% of the readers are the owner, GM, or VP at the business, SBJ helps your business influence decision makers when it matters most. If you need to raise your profile when businesses are considering your category of service, make sure you are differentiating yourself by using the Springfield Business Journal.
I've seen people talk about how the pandemic is bringing up these opportunities for remote work because these larger companies, by nature of like being forced to, learned that people could work from home. You can hire from anywhere, and there may be reasons why you want to work out of Springfield. There's a lower cost of living, and we're so close to a lot of nature. But you've worked remote for a bit, and that's something you sought out. So what about remote work really interested you?
The initial reason I was interested in remote work was to get the opportunity to be more around my family. When I first had my daughter, going back to work was like one of the hardest things for me, in a combination of like feeling like maybe we didn't get enough time to fully bond. It was only 8 weeks off work with her. And then just being dropped back into this work environment, leaving her with someone was just incredibly challenging for me. But even beyond that, like, I'm lucky in remote work in that my husband stays home with our kids, so they're at my house all day, which, you know, does have its challenges at meetings. But at the same time, it means that I can take a break from work and go play with them. I can take a lunch and we can go eat together as a family. And so that meant a lot to me, going to remote work. Alongside that, I have struggled with depression and anxiety, and there's a lot of factors in a typical office environment that can make that challenging for me. And the opportunity for remote work has also benefited my mental health. And then there are, you know, more petty reasons too, like like picking the music and the temperature in my room, setting up lighting and not having fluorescent lights on top of me all the time. So there's a lot of pros to it that I knew I would benefit from.
It's interesting that you mentioned the mental health aspect, because I've heard conversations of like, okay, so now that we're remote, that like culture and connecting with folks, like that's difficult because we're obviously not together. So what about being at home is good for your mental health? Because what I'm hearing from that is like, it's not like a one size fits all for everyone.
I definitely don't think it is. So for me, I have a lot of social anxiety at times. And so being constantly surrounded by people for 8 hours a day was really hard for me. I'd feel like I would overanalyze the situation a lot of times, and that would just be really exhausting. Additionally, like there's days that, you know, my depression might get the better of me, and having the space to be in an environment that I control can help with that a lot. Like I still feel like I can be productive, but not feel like I need to be perfect or like performing for other people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, how has that worked as far as culture is concerned? Because your company's based out of San Francisco, is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, like, it's not like you're, like, going there, checking in, even going in the office once a week. So how do you build culture remotely through StitchFix?
Yeah, it's an interesting problem, especially because I think about half our tech organization's remote. Everyone is right now, but in general. And so it's a weird dynamic in that some people are getting that face-to-face time, and some people aren't. And I think that this pandemic has been an opportunity for them to get a different perspective on things. But that said, I feel like StitchFix as a company works really hard to create a good culture, and that was one of the reasons too that I was interested in them, is because they cared about culture and supporting remote workers. So one thing that we do is that every quarter we have summits. So 2 of those are the whole tech organization, and 2 of those are just your team. And so you'll get together face to face. The format of them differs, but the most important thing to me has honestly been that like time spent with people, and I really miss it right now. But getting to interact with people on teams I don't normally work with, and then even just seeing my team face to face, that helps immensely. Just like that occasional time together.
Yeah. What are you hoping for, like post-pandemic, like whenever you do those kind of like in-person meetings that you mentioned with the coding? So as you're trying to recruit more people, you know, and recruit younger too, like what are some of like the like big selling points of tech that you feel like for kids?
I don't know. I think it can be fun. Like there's something truly exciting about getting something like that to work and seeing it in front of you.
Yeah.
So I think that there is a draw Also there's coding video games, which a lot of kids seem interested in. And I think our future's in tech, so I do think it's also just like a really valuable skill for kids to learn.
Mm-hmm. What do you think like this community needs to encourage more people to go into the tech scene, and maybe to even encourage more companies to start here, mm-hmm. whether it's like a large organization or even just like a tech startup?
From my personal experience, a big issue was that I didn't have like a coding class, a development class in high school. So okay. I didn't really get like any exposure to that world at all. So it never even crossed my mind that would be an option of like, I'll go major in programming in college. Mm. So I think for a lot of people, it's just like they stumble upon it on their own, and it's not something they get into in school. Whereas like art, English, those are classes that everyone takes. So I think it would be great to see something like that taught in high school or middle school, so that people could get exposure earlier into it. I also think the commitment of a 4-year or even 2 years at OTC can be hard for some people to go into and get like the degree in that. And I know coding boot camps have gotten really popular, so you can spend like a few months instead learning it. And seeing something like that closer to Springfield would be wonderful as well.
Yeah. So you studied animation in college, which, connects to the art scene, and you you have that creative side of you. So tell us about the business you started, kind of your small business, but awesome business, because you're wearing it right now.
Yes. Thank you. So like I said, always have loved computers and art. And I feel like there's an aspect to programming that is creative and helps, quench some of my thirst for creating, but not entirely. So in my spare time, I actually watched a baking show and saw some earrings I really liked on them. So I was like, where can I get those? Found the Etsy shop, and then I was like, well, maybe I could just make them. So I looked into like what they were made from, and then started getting really into polymer clay. So I ended up starting my own little Etsy shop. It's called Celestial Studio, and I have been selling polymer clay earrings on there.
Have your kids gotten involved in your business?
Yes, it's super cute. Well, my daughter always wants to do what I'm doing, honestly. So whenever I'm in there making earrings, she'll ask if she can make earrings with me. So I ended up buying some clip-on backs so that she can make her own little earrings to bake with mine, and then we can put them together and she can wear them too. Mm-hmm.
I'm curious too, like with this pandemic, there's so many things that are going to come out of it that might just like change how we work going forward. But, with your remote work and the ability to spend more time with family, that's kind of like, it's like this battle with women, like having it all. And it sounds like maybe in a lot of ways that's allowed you to have it all in that sense. How do you feel about those opportunities? And has tech given more of that to women, like that ability to work remote and maybe have a little bit more of a flexible schedule?
Yeah, I think some tech companies,
okay.
like you have to seek it out, right? It was something that I really valued, so I was looking for companies that aligned with those values. There's obviously some that don't. Like there's some companies that expect you to live and breathe code and work and like work after hours, so I think that there's those opportunities out there, but you have to seek them out for sure.
Mm-hmm. And what about like the company culture of StitchFix really kind of plays into that, that value system you want?
So what's really great about StitchFix is that it was founded and still is run by a woman, our CEO, Katrina Lake. And I think she works really hard to live the values that we espouse as a company. So as an example, she's had 2 kids since starting StitchFix, and both times she took leave and she took her full leave. And so I think like as a leader, setting that example to follow is really important, and she recognizes that. Even like lower down the chain, like my direct manager, if I post in our Slack channel that maybe I'm not feeling great, so I might be working a little slower that day, he'll be like, hey, just take the day off, like get some rest. And everybody at StitchFix seems to work really hard to like keep that balance and keep people from getting burnt out, making sure you're not, you know, working over weekends or going above and beyond in a damaging way.
Yeah. And so you just had a baby too. So just tell me about like that process now of having 2 kids and working from home, and like they can't go anywhere too. Yeah. Like even though your husband's home, you guys are spending probably a lot more time together right now. What's that been like as a family?
Yeah, it's had its moments. It's a bit noisier with 2 children. And then, like you said, before they would go to the park, they would go to the library, they would go to the gym. And I feel like it's a lot more noticeable, the noise in the background, which honestly, it really doesn't bother me. It's kind of comforting, like hearing them play as I'm doing work, and it doesn't distract me. The only time it's been an issue is during meetings. My office, unfortunately, has like a gap at the very bottom under the door, so you can hear pretty much everything. But if that, everyone's super understanding about that happening. I mean, pretty much everyone's in the same boat, like with kids being stuck at home right now. So they're really understanding about it, and we get through it. We work it out.
And it's interesting too because, of course, there are dads that stay at home, but it is more unusual for sure. I mean, what was that? How did you guys come to that decision in your relationship?
The person who was watching Lily, my first kid, she was going to have another baby and not be able to watch Lily anymore. And so we did look into options of daycare, but honestly, daycare is just so expensive. And it was ultimately not really worth it to us for his whole entire paycheck basically to go towards daycare. So we made the decision for him to stay home. I had, started getting into my career, and I also happened to be making more money, so I kept working. I think too, like my parental leaves have taught me I need something else, and so we just both kind of like fit into those roles better. Yeah.
And is that, like with your kids, is that really important to you that you show them like what a relationship could look like? Because that's going to be different than other relationships they might see.
Yeah, it's funny too, like, I don't know, funny, maybe kind of sad, but my husband has gotten some like confusion from people when they're like, what do you do? And he's like, we'll stay at home. But yeah, I think that's really special for them to see, honestly, especially with my daughter, like her getting to see me working hard as she's growing up, and that it's okay, like whatever decision she wants to make, she can see people in both roles. Like there's women who stay home and there's women who work, and whatever you choose to do is fine.
Thank you so much for joining me, Jordan. This was
thank
such
you for
a pleasure.
having me.
Thanks for listening. You can subscribe to No Ceiling from SBJ Podcasts wherever you find your podcasts, or watch videos from the interviews by visiting sbj.net/No Ceiling. This show is produced by AdSmith Studio, with special thanks to Dustin Henderson and Joe Stearns. Photography and design by SBJ's McKenzie Robinson. American National Insurance is the show's presenting sponsor, with support by Great Southern Bank. I'm Christine Temple, and this is No Ceiling.